Okay, so today, guys, we are back with the microstakes guide. Today, we're going to be doing a 2NL play and explain. Now, I know a lot of you may not find a lot of use out of a 2NL play and explain, but at the same time, there are a lot of people that watch the channel that do play 2NL, and it's the microstakes guide after all, and I want to cover all the stakes in this series. The 25NL play and explain will be coming shortly, probably in the next couple of weeks, so do stay tuned for that as well. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so and drop a like on the video. It does really help it out. For now, guys, let's jump into the 2NL pool on PokerStars and see what we can make happen. So, considerations. First and foremost, how do we want to approach 2NL? Now, I haven't actually played a bunch of 2NL recently. It's been a while since I played any 2NL at all, to be honest with you, but we should have labelled him. Here are my main takeaways for anyone watching. We want to be very, very solid. The rake is very, very high. So we want to be playing 3-bet fold. Unless we're from the big blind, we can defend the big blind, but mostly 3-bet fold from the other positions. Just because we don't want to call and pay rake. Putting more money in against weaker players seems pretty good too. Making sure we label everyone. There's going to be a lot of short stackers, I assume, along the way. We'll open up the ace-king. So being very solid, value betting very aggressively. Some situations where we might normally check, we'll just go ahead and value bet. And that's just because people will overcall and probably underbluff, generally speaking. And we just want to get the most value from our hand possible. I do believe that these players will be on the more passive end of the spectrum. Therefore, we're going to get most of our value by mostly just value betting rather than inducing anything. We'll open up the ace deuce offsuit. We're still checking down our ace king. We'll call in 3 spots. Don't expect to get much respect from a c-bet. Generally speaking, we do have ace high on the left, which we're going to try and get to showdown. And with the ace king, we're definitely going to try and show it down as well. We're not going to win very often, but that's okay. And still trying to show down our ace high on the left. And this is what I'm talking about, guys. Like, obviously, this guy should stab a bunch. That board does connect with him quite well. After 3 checks, he should probably be taking a stab at the pot. But generally speaking, they're just very passive. So a lot of our value generally will just come from value betting. So I'm going to make sure that I do that. We're going to notice spots where we might consider threading our hand in as a check. But instead, we're just going to mostly value bet. And yeah, like I said, we're not playing any calls apart from on the big blind. So this obviously is tempting to call, but with the high rake structure, it becomes a lot less appealing to flat on the button. The button's the only other spot where you're most wanting to call. Every other spot, I don't think you should be calling ever. Position, sorry. So the button you can consider, but it is hard to. Obviously, with the rake, I think it's just better to play 3-bet fold. And we're just going to be avoiding most of the marginal spots. Looking for our spots that have very clear value and playing those as effectively and as well as we can. Opening up the ace-jack, obviously. Getting a lot of calls, which I do expect as well. Making sure that everyone's labelled, so if they do double up, then we know that they're still weaker, so that we can adjust accordingly. With the ace-jack 5-way, we have nothing to do but check, and we're definitely going to squeeze our ace-king. Now, I'd probably go to 15 without the extra person on the small blind, so we'll just go to 18. That seems pretty reasonable. We want to make it big. We're not going to get a lot of respect generally. There's also 9 big blinds in the middle, which we're happy to take down if people will let us. And I was definitely expecting to get at least 1 call when I did that. And we do have 2 overcards and a, okay. We have 2 overcards and a gut shot, so I was just about to say this is definitely fine to c-bet. Versus a half pot continuation bet, we just can't really continue. We don't have a backdoor flush draw. We just have the gut shot, the 2 overs. And yeah, versus his bet size, we just have a fold. Obviously not the best play from our opponent. And we'll make sure that we label that one. So that in the future, if we do play with him, we know that he has some tendencies that we can potentially exploit. But yeah, just looking for those very solid spots where we can make a lot of money. 3-4 diamonds may not be one of those, but I am opening it half the time. And versus a very, very tiny 3-bet, we've got ourselves into a bit of a situation here, but we are going to have to peel and fold to a flop bet most likely, especially one of that size. But that's a kind of maybe a situation where we could have just gotten him folded. But I think that generally people are going to be quite passive, and then obviously we would have folded to a normal size 3-bet, but versus the sizing that our opponent offered us, we had no choice but to defend in position. Queen 8 of hearts will defend as well. Flopping the nut flush draw. We're not going to have any raises on this board because it's just not really a board that we're going to be super well on. Any of our aces that we have are probably going to be like weaker aces anyway, and versus our opponent's continue ranges. Continue ranges can have a lot of strong aces in it. Doesn't make too much sense, so we're just going to call. Depending on our opponent's size on the turn, we can have another call, but I still don't think that we can do any raising. With a nut flush draw, so we can probably take another card here. This guy actually, it does look like I've got some hands on him. We will call the turn and check for the river. Close spot the turn, but I think it's fine. We could still have the best hand sometimes, but we're certainly not going to pay that river bet. That player did look solid, which, you know, may have tempted me to call down with some better form of hand, but not with that one. You can certainly consider folding the turn, potentially, but I think it's just fine. We're going to 3-bet on an 83 with the King Jack offsuit. Remember, playing no calls from anywhere but the big blind will be my strategy. We opened the Ace 9 and our opponent called in the big blind, and we're just going to go for. We could go for 2 or 3 big blinds here. I think 3 big blinds is fine. Generally speaking, I think we're going to be able to get away with slightly bigger bets, getting more value from our opponents. Don't think it matters as much. I definitely think we just want to be starting to put more money in against this guy. Maybe trying to see the river cheaply with like 9-8 or something like that. So we're just gonna put more money in. Our hand is going to be good very, very often. 3-betting the King Queen suited. Our opponent calls. We'll be going for about half an hour again, as with all the other videos in the series. Versus call without the backdoors. I think we'll just check. We've got 2 overcards. We've got a gut shot to the nuts. We don't want to get check raised out of the pot. We can't stand a check raise, so we can't stand to be check raised because we can't continue against it. So it makes sense to check. We could consider betting now, but again, I think for the same reasons, we'll go ahead and take another card. Versus the weakness that our opponent showed, we are going to just try and take this pot away on the river. Beat out stuff like Ace Jack. And we don't need to go too big to do so. And once our opponent just tells us his truth 3 times that he really doesn't have anything and he's not really interested, then we can go and take our money. It's possible that we had the best hand anyway, but just in case he did have some ace high, we would hate to check back and lose to that. But yeah, guys, we're going to be, like I said, value betting a lot, but attacking weakness. Attacking weakness is a huge thing. We could have bet the turn in that hand very, very feasibly for those reasons. Going to be 3-betting the kings, obviously. But once we get the truth 3 times, and we don't want to show down and lose to ace high, because that'd be really, really unfortunate. Makes sense to go ahead and take that pot away. We're going to defend the big blind here with pocket 8s. And open up 8-9 offsuit on a 93. That seems okay. With the under the impression that people will be overfolding their blinds potentially. And we're going to call on the left with the pocket 8s, and we're going to c-bet for a small sizing and hope that people just have some raggedy hands that they're interested in calling with. And once we do get a call, we'll certainly be done with this hand. On the left we have another easy call versus half pot, and we'll have to check call the river as well. Thankfully he didn't go for a value bet. I think his hand is certainly worth one, but there's nothing else we could have done in that hand for sure. And we'll give up with the 8-9. Open up the Jack 9 suited. Excuse me while I drink some water. This fellow here, I see in my pools at 16. So I'm surprised to see him at 2. Once we flop 2 pair after checking the big blind with king deuce, we'll start with the bet. Being out of position is not relevant because we didn't call a raise, so no one's the aggressor. So we'll go ahead and take the lead there and start to try and build a pot, like I said. Taking any opportunity to value bet that we can will be my preference at this stake. Just trying to keep very, very solid. I don't like that image. I'm going to go for the block on that image because it's a little bit disconcerting, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to open up the small blind with pocket aces, hope for some action. And we'll start with a c-bet on this board. We'll go slightly bigger. Our opponent's going to connect with board. in some fashion quite often. So we are going to want to size up slightly. And versus raise, we can't do anything but call. We're starting to not be exceptionally happy with the situation. We'll have to also call the turn. But yeah, our opponent can have queen 10, 2 pair all the time. But obviously with aces, we're going to have to take a river. The jack river is interesting. We now beat king 9, which is certainly a consideration. And our opponent did have king 9. I did expect him to have a bunch of 2 pairs. Obviously, we can get there like we did here with the aces, like a 3 or a jack also, as well as an ace would have given us the best hand. And there's also a chance that he's just, not very good and he's putting money in the wrong spots. I was expecting not to be very good on that turn, but it's just not really a turn. We can just go ahead and fold. We have obviously a very strong hand still, and folding there would have been premature. And leading the river doesn't make any sense because obviously our opponent can have something like jack 9 as well, or king jack. We'll start with a small bet in position with our ace 8, and we'll check back the turn. Certainly not strong enough to be betting twice with. Just trying to get to the river now. Our opponent could have something like jack 9, 10, 9. And we'll take our showdown. Could consider betting the river, but I think it's just a little bit too thin. I'm going to have lots of good hands there, so I'm actually going to take my auto sit out from my stars caption off because I really don't mind playing with more than 135 big blinds. I like to take my stack off the table after 135 big blinds because a lot of the study that I've been doing recently has focused on 100 big blind play. So I don't really want to. I want to be able to focus on that rather than complicate my decisions or my mind with deep spots as well. Here I'm just going to fold the 5-6 on a 41. One of those spots where we're talking about where it's just not super profitable with the rake structure, reverse implied odds. Just gonna let it go and move on to the next hand. Keeping it nice and simple, very solid. This guy's got a lot of big blinds and a big blind here. We're going to open up a ace 3. He is auto folding, which is interesting. He looks very passive too. I'm expecting a lot of passive play, so it's not that we won't be bluffing. Our solid strategy does not involve like never bluffing, but it involves a lot of attacking weakness. So like that king queen hand, our opponent just didn't have it and he was telling us that he didn't have it. We could definitely have bet the turn for those reasons, but as long as we do bet once he checks again, I think it's okay. Queen 8 is just a bit of a crap hand versus 3 big blinds. We'll go ahead and fold it. We'll open jack 9 on the button and ace 8. Like I said, not playing any calls, so we would have to 3-bet it, and I don't really want to 3-bet under the gun raiser with ace 8. We'll fold the jack 9 to an open. King 5 off is going to be a fold. And I was speaking to a friend of the channel about this video, and I said I was making a 2-0 Play and Explain, and he said, well, if I was making a 2-0 Play and Explain, I would just say, don't play 2-0 because the rake's so high. Just try and save for 5-0. And I would honestly say that's probably a really good idea. You want to get to 5-0, 10-0 as soon as you can. I think the 5-0 rake is actually lower than 10, but 5-0 is definitely, if you want to start off playing poker, I suggest you play at 5. It's not always going to be possible, and a lot of people do play at 2-0, and I know that's like the most populous pool there is, so it's definitely valuable for me to make this, I hope. But at the same time, you do want to be trying to get to 5-0 as soon as possible, and the strategy that we're looking at here of just value betting all the time and playing very solid stuff is going to be super applicable there as well, for sure. So yeah, I would certainly tend to agree with him that trying to get to 5-0 sooner rather than later would be best, because this is the rake is very high at 2. We're going to open the queen 9 and the queen jack if it folds us. Queen 9 we get defend with the club and the straight draw. We're certainly going to start with the bet, and we can go slightly bigger given the board's connected quite significantly. We're just going to isolate with the queen jack versus limp. I'm happy to just isolate a lot of hands. We get to play in position against a player that's going to be very weak. It's going to make a lot of post-flop errors. And we also get to win sometimes pre-flop. He goes for the min 3-bet. Obviously getting 4-1 we're going to have to call. But we're going to proceed with a high degree of caution on the flop, and we'll definitely fold to a reasonable size C bet. With the nut shot and a backdoor club draw, I think this is actually close, but at the same time, I think we can probably just go ahead and let this one go. It's not the kind of board I was hoping to put lots of money in on. We did manage to make a straight on this river. We bet the flop after our opponent limped a button, and now we're just going to value bet the river. Remember, lots of value bets. We check the turn after betting the flop. Want to protect our 9 on the flop. On the turn, you know, our hand just wants to show down if it can. And on the river, we have a very clear value bet. Ace 9-6, we're just going to start by betting. We do have a gut shot. Board's obviously going to be quite good for us. Our opponent's going to overfold. All this good stuff. Jack 10 is not going to be good enough from that position. Neither is 3-4 offsuit. Making sure I did miss a label there, but making sure we label as much as we can. Just to make sure if these guys double up, we want to know that they had a short stack at some point, because it will mean that they are generally weaker. Jack 9 we're not going to defend. We're just not going to be defending even with really good prices. Too often out of position. Jack 9 off's just not going to play very well at all. So I'm okay with just letting it go. We're looking for those very valuable spots where we get to value bet, value bet, value bet. That's where we're going to make the most of our money here. We don't need to get too complicated, guys. Don't need to get too complex. We just want to attack weakness and value bet. I would say those are the two things to take away. We are going to mix this in. This is one of those hands that you could just let go, honestly, from this position. Making a video and rolling a 93 seem two pretty good reasons to, to open it up. We are also going to see a lot of folds generally, so I'm okay with that too. Mixing in can never be like a huge mistake, but I wouldn't blame anyone for just folding it. It's not going to make you a ton of money here with this rate structure. King 9 we would have opened, but now we'll fold. Queen 10 off will be a half open, I think. We need to make sure we're labeling. That's something I need to be doing a better job of while making this video. Opening up the ace queen, obviously, from under the gun. Don't need to get too fancy by like mixing in 4 bets or stuff like this with ace queen. Obviously, it's a good hand to 4 bet, but it's just not necessary. On the left, we have a pretty good hand, nut flush draw. Just going to start off by betting, got gut shot as well. And we're going to defend versus the 3 bet with the ace queen. On the turn, I think checking is reasonable. We've got some showdown value. We also get to make some flushes when we check back. Our hand could just be good a whole bunch. And on the flush river, we're going to defend with the ace of spades on the right. On the flush river, we're going to value bet. Pretty good turn for us on the right. We'll definitely go for another check call. Sizing will be interesting. We are playing a deeper pot, which is something to consider. We're just going to go for a larger size value bet on the left and take it down. And he had the queen 10, obviously. Happy to pay us our money there. Here, like I said, guys, he checked back. We're not trying to get trappy. We're not trying to get him to bluff. They're going to overcall and they're going to underbluff most often. So obviously he's going to have a hard time unless he has the king of spades specifically to call this bet. So we're just going to size it down a little bit and hope to get a call from like a jack or aces. We could even go a little bit smaller. Deuce 4 deuce, considering check raising but versus sizing, we'll just go for a call. The turn brings in a diamond flush draw, flush completion. Unfortunately, he checks behind. This could be a good reason for raising. But yeah, like I said, guys, not getting trappy, just going for value bets. Obviously, we could mix in some checks here and stuff, but just going to value bet. Expect to get paid more often than I expect people to bluff. We could consider check raising. Had he gone small, we definitely would have started to try and put. We want to put money in the pot wherever we can, and opening the 7-4 because people are overfolding versus a 4 big blind open with the pocket kings. We're just going to go for a very large raise. I do expect people to overcall versus whatever size I make, so I'm just going to stick some extra big blinds on there. And as we've seen, this guy will call. This is a board where we're going to want to go out position quite big. And then, look, this seems pretty good to get the money in on the turn, so that's what we're going to do. Very, very simple. Value bet, value bet, value bet. We isolate the ace-queen, a very bad board for us. And we're just going to try and show down our ace-queen high. On the river, we have a very clear value bet. You'll be noticing the trend. And we'll just go 3/4 pot. Hope for a cry call from like a 6 or a 7. Seems fine to me. A7, no good. Not from that position. Queen 8, honestly, I really don't mind opening it from the button. Lots of under defending going on. We're in position. We get to outplay quite a bit as well. We'll check our 8 on the flop. We want to try and show it down most of the time. But is it going to be a very good board for us? We could just consider betting. If we're going to check, then having an 8 seems pretty good. Obviously not going to get 3 stitch value. The only one thing to consider is to protect our hand. If we had something like 8-7, that would be more relevant because we block a queen. But like obviously we block one of the overcards that could come. Obviously just gonna call here, guys, and then call off the river. Not my favorite river. Queen of diamonds is somewhat relevant. We're obviously never folding. Just gonna try and get him to bluff off. If he is bluffing, just get him to put the rest of his money in when he's bluffing, or if he's just overvaluing an ace. Obviously he probably would have paid off on the river anyway, but if he was bluffing, we definitely want him to just go ahead and let him do that. Again, guys, not putting the extra half a blind in. Don't want to pay rake. Not interested in a multi-way pot with Jack 7. Yeah, so this spot super easy, guys. After he does whatever he does on the turn. But yeah, we're just gonna be letting people do their thing when they want to do that, and value betting ourselves when we get good spots to do so. A7's not going to be an open from there. Keeping it nice and snug, guys. Not like, obviously, as you can see, I mean, it's only 162 hands, but we're still opening a bunch of hands. But you can see these two numbers super tight together because we're just not wanting to do any calling mainly from any positions. We're just going to start with a slightly larger bet here, buy some folds, and then we would probably slow down on a bunch of turns, depending on what it was. But I just think that people will under defend, and the board is going to be pretty good for us pretty often. Opening up the ace-queen on the button. And we'll open the ace-10 as well from the cuff. And we won't be doing any 3-betting there in those positions. King 10 not good enough. King Jack's nearly the bottom of my opening range from under the gun. Jack 4 we could consider opening if it folds to us. And the deuces we can defend. But certainly don't mind putting in. We've got less. I mean, we do have reverse implied odds with the deuces, but we have less so with deuces than we say with like 6-5 suited. So we'll defend it and we'll just check fold. We'll definitely isolate versus this limper. And on top pair, guess what, guys? We're just going to keep value betting. So we'll start with a value bet, a flop bet, and we'll take it down. We could even go small there. But again, I do expect people to over defend. I want to try and build a way to get the money in quicker, and our hand does need some protection too. Not going to open the 10-7 or the King 9. Pocket Jacks will certainly feature. Looks like the big blind is someone that I may have played with before at another stake. And 3-way, guys, we're just going to try and check this down. With the Jack of Diamonds, we may have to consider calling just the once. See what happens on the turn. We'll definitely just be done with the hand now. Ace-3 is not going to feature as an open for me. You could consider it, obviously, with what we've been talking about. Definitely fold the Jacks now. Could even consider just folding the Jacks on the flop, to be honest, but we're getting an okay price. We do have the backdoor draws as well. I think it's okay. But yeah, nothing fancy, guys. You don't need anything fancy. We're just going to attack the weakness that we see in value bet. King, Queen, and Ace 9 are both going to feature. I'm not thrilled about Ace 9. I'm still going to open it, but the big blind does, obviously, as you can see, is going to be defending more than most with either 3-betting or calling. And obviously versus that, we're not in a great spot with Ace 9, but at least we're in position if he does defend. The 3-bets obviously will have a very easy fold. King, Queen, we would have 3-bet on a 50 plus, but on 30 we'll just let it go. Another one of those marginal spots that in this high rake structure we just don't need to take. We'll open up the King 10 of diamonds, of course. Get a defend, flop and open and straight draw. Board's going to be pretty good for us. We're going to start with a slightly bigger bet as it's quite a connected board. On the 10 turn, we'll definitely take our equity as a check, try and show this one down, and then if we make our straight, we'll be, guess what? Value betting. And when he goes big, he's never got ace king, so we can quite happily just like min raise here and get him to try and pay us with. He might be trying to blow us off a chop. If he has a king himself, he'll call. If there's one stake where I think someone could have ace king, it's going to be this one. But we're just going to try and get him to pay us off with a chop. I don't think if he was betting here with a chop, then I think he would just snap call here. I mean, this is pretty interesting now. So we opened and he called. So basically, he's saying he might not understand. Right, guys, this is interesting. High level spot. He might not understand that we're supposed to have ace king a lot more than he is here, which makes me think he just has ace king, right? But he flattered the big blind, so ace king should just not be a thing. I've seen it before. We are going to pay the man his money, but we're not thrilled. He does have ace king, and I was obviously concerned about him having that, but I think our raise on the river is fine. If he's trying to blow us off a chop, he would definitely pay that bet. Once he goes for the raise, I mean, yeah, guys, like at the end of the day, it's 2-L, and I figured that someone. I mean, we may just have to fold there, but if really, should he ever have ace king? This might be a fold, guys. To be honest with you, I'm just going to fold the queen jack. This might be a fold. I'll be interested to see. I was tempted by it, but I think given the stake, given that the ace king should obviously be 3-betting without a shadow of a doubt. Like I said before, I called. If there's anyone's going to have ace king, if there's any stake that's going to have ace king, it's going to be this one. But you know, that's okay. We'll 3-bet this at some frequency on here, but not on a 31. I mean, obviously, we could just call the river, honestly. It's a pretty interesting spot, really. It's super hard to fold when not only do we block ace king, but he should just literally never have ace king. So, and it's not like, I mean, maybe it's just a fold. If it was like, if I had the nut end of the straight against like any other, like if it was like for him to have king queen, like say for example it was 7, 8, 9, 10 jack, I'd definitely fold a queen, but because he can have king queen a lot more often than he should have, the hand he does have. We're going to check back this turn to induce some bluffs, and also we can't really go 3 streets with it, but we'll definitely value bet the river. Pretty interesting spot there. One I've not really. I mean, I have, like I said, I've seen people have ace king there a lot. I thought there was a good chance he may just be trying to blow me off a chop, which seemed strange. But certainly he could have just have had a king. Maybe it was prudent to just go ahead and call. But I just thought that he would call that small bet, and obviously the theme of it of the play today has been to get as much value as possible wherever we can. And yeah, it may be a over adjustment on my part, but I'm not. I'm interested to see what, because obviously it's not a spot that you can even look at, because you know, ace king should just never be in there. But you know, certainly an interesting one. Once he makes it 77, I'm pretty upset about it, but I don't know if there's anything that I can do. Obviously, I'm going to have all the ace king. I'm not worried about only like, oh, I'm folding like top of my range, etc. This isn't the top of my range for one. But if I do fold this, I am only calling the nuts. That's not a problem if we think that all our opponent has is the nuts, but our opponent just flattered the big blind, which is not something we should expect to see. I'm going to start with a half pot bet our position on this board. We've got 2 overcards, and on a queen, if it hadn't been a diamond, we would have done a lot of value betting. As it is a diamond, we'll check. And on a queen river, we're just going to go big for value. On a 12, we'll defend a raise 10. It's not a board we're really going to want to raise, so we'll just start with a call. Our opponent's going to be doing a bit better than us. We're still going to have a bunch of aces though, but we'll 3-bet the stronger ones. So again, we're going to go for a call, and with the gut shot on the left, we'll start with a c-bet, and we'll be value betting the turn. We can't overbet on the board. The board texture changed a bunch. Here we could raise again, similar situation. So unless he has quads, then obviously, yeah. I think he's just going to have an ace, obviously. We could just consider calling, but again, we will go for the raise on the theme that we want to value bet as much as possible. If he was to re-raise, then obviously he's probably just going to have an ace. We're not going to be folding this one, and we're certainly not going to feel bad about the other one. Is certainly much more of a fold than this would be if he went all in. But we're trying to get called by like queens or something. 3-betting the queens. It looks like he may well just have. This is. I mean, I really don't think I'm going to fold here, guys. But lots of interesting stuff going on at the end here. I imagine this is a spot we can probably just let go. But against just a random player at this stake, I don't really have a good feeling about letting it go. These is only over 14 hands, but he does look quite interesting of a player. He does have the aces, guys, so maybe we can win. Maybe we can win one of the runs. It doesn't look like we will. Oh, this guy's disconnected, which is why we haven't had a decision from him yet. So apparently, guys, just believe them when they tell you they have it. If we're going to take anything away from my experience at 2NL, which I haven't had a lot of, it looks like we should just believe them. So maybe that's something that we should consider. Certainly in those 2 spots, it seems to be true, but you know, certainly very interesting. This turn we don't have any equity anymore, so we're just gonna fold it. But we are coming to the end of the session, guys, so we will set out the next big blind. Some pretty interesting, very 2NL like spots. We were doing very well with our general strategy before, paying some people their money in spots that we thought we had to. Maybe the queens we could just fold. I have a feeling there'll be some people telling me to fold there, but the guy was shaping up to be, obviously it's only 14 hands, but he could just be someone that's dipping in and throwing their money in the middle, and I did already have 10 big blinds in there, so I think folding would be, yeah, probably something I don't want to do. Going to defend the queen 9 versus a 3-bet and check on the queen 4-4. We'll 3-bet the ace 8 on a 53. And we'll play the queen 9 and we'll make that the last hand. So we will have to defend versus this continuation bet. And we'll see some turns and we'll check. Another small bet. We honestly could start to consider folding now without a diamond. We are going to take one more card off. And if I was very close between two decisions, I would look at my RNG, which would be a call anyway. So we're going to call. Pretty bad river, which we can definitely go ahead and check fold. Should our opponent decide to put more money in. I think pre-flop and flop are totally fine. I think turn is close, but we're getting a very good price. And I think river is just an easy fold. Anyway, that's going to do it, guys. Some interesting spots there at the end, to say the least. But I hope you guys enjoyed it nonetheless. If you did like it, then drop a like in the comment below. Drop a like on the video and comment below. Thanks very much for your support, and I will see you guys on the next video. Take care.